Listen to this. The new era doesn't mean you leave your people behind. It's about your willingness to learn. And when you are willing to learn, the business is willing to invest in you. Or this, you start with a design, then you come up with the requirements, not the other way around anymore. Or this, AI made it possible to change your mind more often. This episode is full of hot takes and yes, also some opinions about the future based on real experience. And the real experience is what Guanan from Ablefy explains in this very detailed episode. This one is for both product managers and product leaders, for all of you who try to learn or try to get inspiration from a very detailed description of how they worked in the past and how they work now, how the roles have changed and how they were actually able to reduce time to market and therefore also time to feedback from 3 to 6 months to only a month until they had the very first customer for the very first product built on AIs. Ablefy is a software as a service for creators to monetize their knowledge through an online course, for example, or digital products. And their latest product is a community product that was built with 3 people only. 2 engineers and Guannan as a combination of a product manager and a product designer. And in this episode, you hear every detail about how they did it, which tech stack they use, and what are the main benefits, what are the new bottlenecks now, what were the challenges that they went through, and her advice or her tips about how to overcome these challenges to really make it work in a way that with these 3 people, they launched this product within a month from 0 to the first customer. Listen in. All right, let's go. Hi, Guanan. Thank you for joining this conversation. I don't call it podcast conversation. Thank you for joining. I got your name from a friend who watched your presentation about Ablefy's AI transformation. You sent me the slides. I looked through them and I'm like, oh my God, this is the exact type of thing that I want to know. I want to know details. I want to know examples. I want to know the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
The learnings and so on and so forth. So I thought like, okay, I have to reach out to her. So I did, and you joined. So I'm very, very thankful.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I think definitely the past, I would say 1 year is very exciting. There are many, many experiments going on. And I'm also very happy to really share the thoughts and learnings with the external world. It's like there are so many struggles, but also so many achievements at the same time. So it's also a really fulfilling process for me to actually see what's resonated with other people and then what's where I can get actually inspiration to really improve my process.
That's cool. And I want to learn more of that because I'm pretty sure between the presentation and today, there's been more happening, right?
Exactly. That's, I think the exciting part. It's really, I would say like every month, things are completely different. So like there are a few things I outlined as, for example, things that didn't work out for us or struggles. And we already have a new version of how we really tackle that. And some of these challenges are already resolved and some are still there, but we had a new attempt. So it's really an ongoing process. Of course, new challenges emerge while we try new methodologies. So it's really a very interesting process, I would say.
Cool. Let's dive in. And let's start with a short introduction of yourself, of Ablefy, what you do, and so on. And then maybe let's kick it off with, the kickoff.
Sounds good.
Like, when did it start with the thought of, hey, we have to adopt this new technology? What was the strategy? What was the thought? What was the plan? And where are you now? Just like a overview kind of.
My name is Guannan Li, so I work for a company called Ablefy. It's a Berlin-based company, and we work with creators. So basically people who have knowledge, and we help them to turn the knowledge into running business, or hopefully also sustainable and also profitable business. So what it means is we help them to host their content and run all type of activities. For example, having online course, having events, and then also having coaching sessions. So we provide infrastructure for them to actually run all these business activities. That's important for them to convey their knowledge. But we also help them with the payment infrastructure. So they only need to think about how I want to sell my knowledge, actually focus on connecting with our customers. So we help them to charge in the legal and compliant way, and then also with all the flexibilities for them to really drive conversion. So that's more or less what we do. And we are already 10 years old, so already in the market for quite long. We were one of the, I think, the very first companies in also the whole, especially like a German market that's really focused on this specific domain. So that's just a little bit background also for the story. That's, of course, it's good that we have customer base. We have loyal customers who are with us, and then customers particularly loyal because many of them really started our business with us. They grew together with the company. So we have a very loyal and then also supportive customer base. But at the same time, we also struggle with more legacy issues. So compared to more AI native startups, we also have our unique challenges. And for myself, so I started with the company as head of design. So mostly my background is more a mix of product and also user experience and product design. So in my career, I have worked across a few different roles. So initially joined the company from design perspective, and then also slowly moved more into growth side and also taking over product marketing and some more marketing activities to make sure we do not only launch products, but actually we introduce it to customers properly and people adopt it. And then afterwards, with how AI was emerging, so I saw also a unique opportunity for me to really use my knowledge and experience in product design, also marketing, to actually build more like a incubator inside the company to really drive this whole AI transformation. So that was more the starting point, was more or less, I think last year around June, we started to prepare that. At the time, so around, I think April, May, we were already thinking about the whole AI transformation in the company. I think every companies were thinking about it already at that time. If it was not already, some companies were slightly earlier, some companies were a little later, but roughly I think every companies knew that this is going to change the entire industry. We have to do something about it. So the same for my company. Then we started to really think about what we could do. So there are multiple things we're doing, and also the company also build a great foundation for everyone to experiment. So we provided budget for everyone to try out tools. We also hired some consultants to help us to really kick it off. The part I particularly focus on, and also I proposed this program to my company, was a team called AI Speedboat. I think for AI transformation, there are multiple layers. Of course, you have to first equip your people. You have to upskill them. You have to build up the infrastructure, like it's technical infrastructure for you to build product, but it's also, for example, governance of tools and security and all these things from infrastructure perspective. There are internal automation, how you can transform how every team works with AI. But there's also a particular aspect about how we bring all these AI values to our customers. I was particularly interested in...
So it's the internal use case and the customer-facing use case.
Exactly. I think I was particularly interested in still like more to build products. So we built multiple work streams. Then I proposed that we should also start the team really focusing on building AI products. So bring the AI value to customers faster. It's not because we are not thinking about it really adding AI capacity in our main product, but just with the background that we are 10-year-old and also the company started as a more self-funded company. So for many of the early time, that was very much about building things quick and dirty and to release value and like really deliver value to customer faster. So to test out the business, basically now we have a very stable and growing customer base. We actually struggle a lot with the initial decisions we made about the infrastructure. So while we are trying to transform the whole product, so at the time, the idea was also we do not miss a window. We try to speed it up by also having a team that's actually light and actually can test out everything without any of the constraints. So without thinking about the whole legacy system, about tech stack, but we actually start a greenfield product. In this way, we can bring values fast without really any legacy issue. But also that because we do not really have also a large customer base, that's also all the basically operational burdens. So you can also experiment with new methodology, even new tech stack, and also how to build things a bit faster without a huge risk that For example, imagine if we are experimenting in the main system and we are saying, okay, going forward, we do not have QA anymore. Every engineers just do automatic QA. And then the next day, all our customers do not receive their payout. So then it's a huge drama. So we thought, okay, why don't we build a little startup? So actually people are more also that we can also be more tolerant about mistakes, and we can also try out everything. So that was the initial idea. Yeah.
May I ask what type of product or the startup in the company that was? So I understand that it was a bit like piloting the whole thing with a separate product that has no direct connection to the legacy system, right? So what was this product?
Yeah, it evolved a little bit. So in the beginning, we thought the guiding principle is we are going to build something that target on the same customer base. So it has to enhance our whole business ecosystem. It's still not a complete random startup. It has to be a startup in the same ecosystem to help us to strengthen our marketing leadership. But at the same time, it can exist more independently. That was the initial guiding principle, but with time actually evolved a little bit. So for now, what we did, so I would say like it's independent product that connect to the core system through APIs. So actually customer can experience it more as we are still working on trying to make it as seamless as possible, but at least to this stage, it's already possible for a single sign-on. They log in with the same username and password, and then they can also navigate between the two systems seamlessly. And this is also something that adds value to what they already use from Ablefy. So the exact,
cool.
So just for the exact thing, like what happened was, as expanded, Ablefy has, for example, we had our online course infrastructure to help people to configure a structured course. We also have a whole payment infrastructure and also the sales, for example, upsell. I also configure a whole funnel and also affiliate market, all this infrastructure. So what we built was a community platform. So all the creators, they have a way to, they need to connect to their audience somehow. And then basically purely based on WhatsApp or Telegram, then they struggle with, it's not really, all the conversation are flooding. So they cannot really structure it in the right way. And also they do not really own the audience. People looking at multiple things at the same time from your competitors, from their friends and everything. So they could not completely configure how this space with their audience look. So we knew this is an important part of creator business. So this is a chance we saw that we could build up this infrastructure. And how it works is if you want to, for example, charge for your community, then it's still provided by Ablefy. So there's an integration with Ablefy. The payment infrastructure is completely provided by Ablefy. Also, if you are already selling some product on Ablefy, for example, you have an online course or you have an event ticket sold on Ablefy, then you can sync access between this online course and this community. So basically all your current customers can have access to a community as well. And then if they stop paying for your online course, they also lose access to community.
And this whole thing, there are companies out there that only run community as a product.
Yeah.
And you built this as a greenfield product only with AI.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about it. And then offline, we have to talk about your product because that might be interesting for me. Anyway, but that's a different conversation.
So I'm acquiring new customers here. It sounds good.
Maybe.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm generally impressed that you built this whole product only with AI. But I didn't want to cut your story as in how you got there, but I'm very generally interested in how you did that.
Yeah. First, just correction.
Like, what was the process?
Yeah.
And then yes. The implementation and so on.
Okay, first correction is not we don't have any engineers yet, especially if you consider that we started first version around August last year. So web coding, also until now, web coding is not to the extent that you can actually build scalable products without any technical knowledge. So it's not really like we don't have any engineer. It's more like the function of engineers. Also, product has completely changed compared to our main product. And we could build this app with a very small team at a very short time. So to put a little bit more
How many people?
in context, so we had 2 engineers, and then we had the first MVP in 1 month. So we had the first customer with 200 members that's onboarded after 1 month. So from September, we had our first customer who was actively using the community and then basically used it for a few months as our first beta tester. There were many things to improve, but nothing crashed, and the customer could run a good community program together with all these training for 3 months. So I think that's something very difficult to imagine, like just a few months ago, and also in the old legacy context. Normally, each product team includes more or less close to 10 people, close to 10 engineers, right? You have a backend engineer, you have a front engineer, you have your QA engineer. So I would say like 3 backend, 2 front end, 2 QA. That's a standard size to have a product. If you are building a new product.
Of a designer and a product manager.
Exactly. And 1 designer, 1 product manager. I think that's a standard size. So it's easy 10 people. And then if you build up something from scratch, not really improving some feature, but you want to really start a new product line, I would say if you have 10 people, if you have a roughly workable product in 3 months, I think that's a pretty big achievement already. And to stabilize it, it probably take longer, right? So, many things changed. So first, all the engineers got merged in full stack engineer. So every engineer, we have 2 engineers, and then both work on both front and back end plus QA, which means it already simplifies handover. It simplifies even your Jira process because you do not need to hand over what is a build in backend to a front-end engineer, then to a QA engineer. Also And
did they upskill or did they become full-stack engineers by using AI?
It's actually very exciting because, as I mentioned initially, we hired the consultant to help us. I would say the first engineer was more like it was brought in by, like they knew this already. They had these skills. They can do full stack. They know how to use AI. And then we also invited 1 engineer from our current team. He was just a front-end engineer before. And then just being in the team for 3 months. Not for 3 months. I think he was fully full stack after 3 months. But even from month 1, just with learning that Aaron builds as full stack from very beginning. But maybe the front engineer started with more like lighter backend tasks. But from very beginning, he could do that already with the help of the team, with help of AI. And he could take up like API tasks, like really integration tasks already after 3 months. So it's really amazing to see. I think it's amazing to see how fast people can learn. It's also very empowering to say that the new era doesn't mean that we are leaving people behind. If you want to transform, you can. It's more like about your willingness to really step in, and you can really get empowered by all the technology.
Inspiring. Okay, cool. So we have 2 full stack engineers. One is from the outside as a consultant who knows already how to do that. The other is from the team and has learned from the consultant basically and hands-on during the work how to become a full stack engineer.
Yes.
And then we have a designer and a PM.
Yes, roughly. We also didn't have a complete separation. So I had, for myself, I worked as a product manager also for a few years in the past and also worked as a designer for many years. So I was mostly directly leading the team with more or less about 50% of the time of support from 1 designer. So we also do not have complete separation. For me, my task was a little bit more leaning towards product management. But I would also say product management in a more AI era sense. So meaning thinking about the business metrics, connecting with the commercial team and also rest of team and leadership to make sure we're building the right thing. And also basically figuring out how we can track things and when it's time for us to onboard beta testers and how we engage with all the internal and external stakeholders to make sure we actually deliver business value, less in the writing tickets part. So the writing tickets plus provide solution was completely covered by the product designer from the very beginning. So I mostly point the direction. It's important that we cover these capacities and then figure out how we can cover it. Then all the detailed tickets were directly provided by product designer. So that was already in the beginning of the time, but we had a vague concept. Let's treat it as startup. So I was asking myself like, okay, if I start a company myself now, am I really going to hire a product manager, or am I just going to try to see do I really need someone? So we try to push as fast as we can and until we really know what we need. That was the initial idea. But of course, in the later time, it got more interesting for me. If you ask me now, last week I just published a new role called product builder, the first product builder role in my company. So this is getting official. We are going to have only one person who is covering product management, product design, plus some parts of front end in this team. So
wow,
this is
nice.
Yeah,
we'll talk
go ahead.
about that in a second. So as you can see, I'm actively taking notes,
Yes.
right? And I'm like putting points like, okay, I have to talk about this later.
Yes.
Like I have to ask you about this,
Yes.
and so on and so forth. Okay, so maybe let's go back to this thing of, we have talked a bit about the roles now, the engineer role, the designer / PM roles, only the three of you.
I would say 3.5. So we had more or less 50% of the capacity of a product designer who is handling like daily operation, mostly including provide a more detailed design and then also transform the design into a simple ticket. So more on the operational, like day-to-day business side.
I heard the role of the engineers changed into full stack engineers.
Yes.
I heard that the product person is someone who can do product management and design, like has some design skills to understand what good design looks like.
Yes.
And the half designer, what do you mean with operational work? How did the role of the designer change in your company?
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah, I think generally how I see it is with how fast engineers are, the ratio definitely changed. Like when we started, I didn't want to hire a designer or product manager because I thought, come on, there are just two engineers. If it were my own company, I would not really hire someone in addition who cannot contribute to the codes, right? With this ratio. But of course, with time, we realized actually, I think like with how product management, also designers, transformation really goes, it's we are not matching the engineer transformation speed. So to be more specific, for example, stakeholder alignment, it takes human. So I still have many people that I need to bring on board. I need to connect to marketing to make sure that, for example, they work with us to actually start the beta testing on time. I need to brief them what really has changed. Like, although I could get many help from AI, that's, for example, a briefing could be auto-generated by AI through the code base. It can tell me what has changed, what are the main features. But it's not like if you send a briefing to people, especially if it's AI generated, then people will look at it and start planning the marketing activities. So it takes a lot of time still, like sit with people, demo the product, answer their questions personally, gain their support. Then also to align with them and also catch up like along the way to say, okay, currently we have 5 people who apply for beta testing program. How can we increase the number? And then we say, okay, should we promote to another segment of people? How many do we aim for? We look at the result, we decide what to do. So all of these things, they still take a lot of human involvement. And not to mention, of course, with the management, stakeholder management, like to align with the CEO, this is an investment company. We have to also report back to our investors if this is making sense. So really brainstorming on where the product should be, where we see the future, what are the, how we prioritize things. These things still take a lot of human involvement. Generally, I feel like AI makes some like repetitive work easier for product managers. But still, like, as it's so much like really human interaction involved in this whole job that cannot really be completely automated. So I still say that now definitely I think with one person it's too much. Like you cannot zoom in and out in. So I say product management work in 2 parts. It's like one part is really like figuring out the business KPI, keep checking that to make sure that we are contributing real value and bring all the stakeholders on your side to actually go forward. And the other part is really working with engineers and designers to make sure that we have clear tickets, we have clear requirements, so we actually execute towards that direction. So how we split was actually inside the product manager do both, and designers follow the requirement to provide the design. How we split was more like I spent a bit more time on really handling the whole stakeholder management and also business direction part, while my designer works on both like everything with the team. So I point the direction to say this is aligned, this is the most important thing to do. We are going to have our first beta tester on board starting from 15th of September, let's see. So, and then the most important feature to cover are these. That's already more or less clear, but how can we deliver the feature and how it should work and all the technical details was mostly defined already by the product designer from both logic, requirement, and also the exact user experience together with the engineer. So I would say like this person also work as product manager plus product designer all together.
So basically myth busting here, it's not that we don't need designers anymore.
No, I don't.
Them, but in a bit different way.
Yes. It's I think like the roles are definitely changing, like what you really need. And if you maybe eventually also that's these two parts responsibility could also be merged. But like from as a daily execution perspective, I actually say that so we ask a designer to take over the product management work rather than the other way, because at least in the beginning, that's we need someone who can provide clean design, have clear requirements for engineers. So it's harder for product managers to really know how to really, no matter web code or design in Figma, and provide the right spec for engineers. But at least product designers, they are very clear on the product logic as well. So I think it's really a little bit more energy split. Also, of course, some skills, it's just like if you are talking to people, if you have meetings for 6 hours, 7 hours a day, it's very difficult for you to just sit there and thinking about how every feature should work and actually concentrate on this. I feel that's more things that takes concentration.
Yeah.
So that's how we are more or less splitting.
Okay, cool. All right. So then let's maybe move on with this question of how do you work now, like this little team, this AI native team, how does it work compared to the classic way how you were working in the other teams? And let's maybe take it with an example, right? Mm-hmm. So here's an example. This is what happened, and these are the exact steps how we handled it, kind of maybe.
Yeah, we can take an exact example about like building a completely new feature. For example, a year ago, we were building also a quite a new feature called affiliate marketplace. Basically, where a creator can just put their offer in the marketplace and then attract other people to promote their product. Then they will offer them commission for that. So how we would do that, it's we start from a grand discovery that we look at competitors. We define who are our competitors. It could be companies who offer similar service, like as all-in-one as us. It can also be very specialized marketplace.
Who would do that? The product manager?
I think it's between product manager and product designer. So both would do that. So competitor lists. So then we would interview customers. So that's our small product designer who would go to interview, for example, we'll get help from CSM and customer success managers to identify maybe some of the sellers who had these needs. Then we'll interview them. Then we'll try to structure what are the top requirements. Then product designer will start discuss like more also concept design. So we'll map out also a story mapping, like in order because it's a completely new feature. So you have to do it through the whole user journey. Like how do we introduce this feature? Where should stay? How do people get onboarded to this new thing? How they start using? What are the configuration they have to do? And then how do they manage their affiliates? Basically people who promote their offers. How do they track the performance? So we have to look through this. That's also between product designer and product manager together. They have to have a high level conceptual model and mapping out every stage. Then you figure out a design, and then we go testing with users on the concept design, like mostly done by Figma. So we show them the design to say this is it what you are asking for, and then we get feedback. Then we refine it for a few rounds with the feedback. And then we are happy with the general concept. And we also work on MVP. We define a scope MVP. Then we go into detailed design. All of these are before any engineers were involved. And then we start to prepare for. Then for this MVP, we probably broke it down into each sprints. We work in 2-week sprints.
How long would this process take in the past?
I think the whole
without.
I think whole discovery process could easily take, I would say, up to 2 months, like 1 to 2 months.
Okay.
Just with them, also it's with amount of work, and normally we also need external, basically gather maybe an actual designer or researcher to support this. If we are really starting something like a completely new product line or feature, then normally even for MVP scope, then we realize like to break down to something like we feel we can release, then into 2-week sprints, then it's easily 2-3 months of work. So basically until 2-3 months, we will not really have something we can show to a real customer. That's very common. And then we try to have also like a beta testing, initial release, and then we try to brief also marketing team and all the customer facing team. We try to release it and we get some feedback. We work on another normally few months of stabilization, like with beta testing and also with customer feedback. So I think this whole process could take, I think fairly speaking, 3 to 6 months to build a new feature. I think that's a common kind of timeline, not including from the starting of the development.
Familiar.
Yeah, just from the discovery to the first MVP, I think that would also be like we need 2 months to discover.
At least 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it from my time at Doodle when me and my team were also building new products with Doodle One-on-One and Doodle Bookable Calendar and a lot more. I remember we also needed something like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, 3 months for the first MVP and then or version 1 and then iterate until we had something that we could say, okay, this is quite okay now. Yeah. So in total about 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
And now, how does it work now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say like first, the things that do not change is I think the design thinking process that doesn't fundamental change. I mean, eventually to build a product, you still need to be familiar with your competitors. You need to have a clear positioning about who are the customers, what they need. So I think these are the parts that eventually need to answer these questions. You cannot really bypass this whole kind of discovery process. I think what has changed is really like it's much more iterative. So things move much faster. So it's okay you haven't really figured it out in the very beginning. So I think previously it feels like it's very hard to change the direction of engineers once they start. So you do not want to come in, like the engineer work there for 1 month and you say, by the way, guys, I just thought this could be done. We want to go a different direction. I think in general, you feel you are, as a product manager, you are making a huge mistake. Like you are really wasting engineer resources. Then with the new team, how we did it is really first, like, community is not kind of a completely new concept. So we could quickly understand what are the key elements. I mean, you have to have some kind of post. You have to be able to post something. And then you have to be able to reply to it, comment to that. You can probably like it and you can probably also comment on that. It's just basic functions. Then we also very soon know that it's important that you can structure your post and conversation into some themes. So that's, you can create a substructure to say, okay, this is about announcement. This is about, for example, exchanging ideas, and you can structure things in some infrastructure. And it's also not really difficult to understand, and you need to control the roles. There are some people who are your admin, then they can delete posts, for example. And there are some people who are your members, then they can post. So there are also, so I think all of these, it doesn't take until product manager has a perfect PRD to kick it out. So how we did it is really in parallel. So we have, we understand the business roughly. So we started while doing more accurate positioning, like also a little bit in the beginning, then just show engineers roughly this is what we're trying to build, then why we believe this makes sense, what values we want to really bring to customers. Well, actually,
and that as a concept or
really
like a written concept?
Yes, it's really just it could I think the whole purpose is to empower the engineers to think to think in the product perspective. So they are not waiting for a spec. We are trying to make them understand what value we're trying to deliver. So in this way, it's normal things change because we have to explore together how we can deliver the most value with more and more information we get, and also at the fastest pace.
That's cool, right? I mean, the whole market is talking about empowered teams and is trying to create systems around the old world, let's say, like how you can provide engineers the information as best as possible and make them contribute to the solution and so on and so forth. And then there comes AI and you're just, we just give them like the corners and then, so we'll figure it out on the way. I love that. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to say that because this is such a cool connection to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, sorry. Please.
Oh, good. So I also felt very empowering because first MVP was more or less built by engineers without much of the product input, without design input. Like we had some concept design, but then engineers were like, okay, I will say that as example of the target. So they do not challenge us on all the small details from our beginning because we didn't have time to sort out all the details. Nice. So they just say, okay, I roughly know where you want to get. So I will build something that works in that direction. So basically...
and how did they build it? By using what?
So you mean the tech stack or how?
Yeah, what's the tech stack? How did they build it?
Yeah, so I mean, we chose the tech stack that's more like I think recommended from the AI world that's different from our main tech stack. So we use Next.js full stack. We also use more serverless infrastructure. For example, we use Vercel for deployment, so that makes it possible for everyone to deploy. So basically, we had a whole more AI kind of native infrastructure set up. Then also it helps people to wipe code like better. So what happened as a result is we actually use our own product after 1 week. So we decided that...
Wait. So you mentioned vibe code.
Yeah.
Vibe code as in we used Lovable and then took the code, or vibe code as in we used an AI coding tool to accelerate or speed up the coding piece?
Yeah, I think it's closer to the second, although I say these things are merging as well. So we use Cursor at the time in the team, also Cloud Code. So still engineers keep very close look at the code. It's not like they only wipe code. So they use AI to accelerate their process, but they very much, they also follow the whole engineering process and to build it as iterative as possible, smallest incremental change as possible. They do automatic tests from very beginning. So it's more like an engineering process for web coding, not a hobby project. So we know this product has to scale from our beginning. So how?
Oh, that's cool. So basically they get the information from you and then they still follow the engineering guidelines as in create tests for what you write.
Definitely.
Make sure like probably all the standard tests, like both regression tests as well as like what's the new thing? The evals, AI evals, probably this kind of thing.
Yes.
Like everything from A to Z.
Yes.
And then you build.
Yes.
Cool. So it's still test-driven development, basically.
Yes. I would say like that might be one of the, from my experience, that's the biggest gap for a non-engineer to start vibe coding, for example. We wanted our designers to contribute to codes, and eventually, at least in the beginning, that the biggest challenge is more like from things that look like they work to the things that actually work, like to the definition done from engineering perspective, there's a gap. So you have to make sure that, for example, your code is clean, you follow the file structure, the structure of engineers. You also need to make sure that it goes through the end-to-end testing so it doesn't break anything truly. All the edge cases are covered. And then also like even how you shouldn't, for example, build the entire feature, like even a major function in one go, you try to still follow as the smallest PR possible. So all these things were something like we hit a wall and we learned along the ways because we were very excited that we let designer jump on the code direct to say, now I can change this. This looks much better better. And the engineers were just frustrated to say, what are you doing to the code? And your code is not maintainable eventually. But from designer perspective, it's really, we testing this on staging, everything works. So that's, I think, a topic we can talk more about, like really the frictions and challenges we learned along the way.
Absolutely. That's one of the core things that I want to get to. And I just took a note about that. Let's go back to how it works now. So you give the input, the engineers still follow the engineering process. Now speed it up with AI. Cursor and Claude Code and through AI coding.
Yes.
And then
basically they give me a first version already after 1 week. They said, okay, let's run our internal communication in our own community. So we started doing our weekly planning inside our own community just after 5 days of development. So it's roughly working. That's at least like not all the UI part are completed, but they can invite this team inside the community, and then you can post something, people can comment. You can structure your post into a few things. So that's more or less the basic function of communities. So then we start to work on that. That while we interact with each other, we of course get bothered with many things. I cannot format my text in the right way when I comment and it doesn't show immediately, or I need to refresh the page, something like that. So we started to use our own product. We started to write our weekly planning, and also what we achieved last week, what we plan to do this week inside our own community just after 1 week when we kicked off this product. That's also, so until we bring in the first real customer after 1 month. So as you see,
and that whole process was 1 month
for the first version to have something that the customer can actually use. So that was 1 month.
Yes. Wow. Like from 3 to 6 months down to 1 month.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have to say, like, it's not only a comparison of like also the time like that. It's also more like I think because developments could become so much faster, but also because the team, we can have a very small core team that everyone understands the business. So we actually work more collaboratively. So in this way, we could really...
Less complex, right?
Yeah. So we really can build things more iteratively. So I think that's the whole agile spirit. I don't think these things are new with AI, just like AI made it more possible. Because it's okay that you change your mind, actually more frequently. So we know roughly this is where we want to get with community, but we could really define like what would be the thing that we absolutely need to build, like also from functionality perspective to make it usable. Then we schedule improvement ticket here and there. So for example, we try to write a post, realize it's very important, I can attach a picture. And after attach a picture, we say, okay, the picture is formatted really strangely, like when the texts are long. So we just keep having improvement ticket. But it's not a change of direction. Like you do not have to have everything really thought through from the very beginning. Like you do not have to have a spec to say, this is the maximum picture I should have. These are the edge cases I want to handle. This is how the image and text format should look. You can also completely tell engineers build something. This is how competitors do that. This is how every community works. Go build something, and they build something, and you test it, and you schedule some improvement ticket. So you really work just next to each other and to keep shaping this product together.
Cool. So you still schedule the improvements into the next sprint. It's not like they immediately fix the issue. It's still scheduled, so it still follows the whole development practices. Better, faster, more iterative, as you say.
I think like we do not follow sprints anymore in the new team. We just work more on Kanban style. I think like we just absolutely do not see any reason like things need to wait for 2 weeks if we want the improvement.
Okay, nice.
So it's really...
So basically you just find it, you file the ticket and it's on the board and then developers can just pay.
Yeah,
cool.
And every day we look at backlog again and make sure it always reflects the highest priority to lowest priority. So they just keep, before they pick up the next ticket, they always look at what is the current highest priority. So they just keep fixing, and then we just keep preparing the backlog.
Nice. And the time to feedback basically is...
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Is shrink.
Yes.
Okay. Which brings me to the next section. And I'm wondering if I just squeeze in the question what a product builder is now. Let's maybe quickly cover this. And then I would like to go into the whole space of how did you measure success of the whole transformation things? Like, how did you know that this actually worked? I mean, we heard quite a lot of things, but maybe to give very specific metrics, if there were any, for measuring success of the whole AI transformation. Also, what benefits did you see now? And then also about the very ugly stuff. What did not work? What was the things that were shit? And like you mentioned one, right? Like the struggle with following the engineering or learning the engineering process, but like going more into this direction. But before that, let's talk about very quickly this thing about what a product builder is that you are hiring and which part of this process that you describe the product builder should cover and why.
I think it really comes from first just between product manager and designer, how the process has changed. I think normally in the previous time that should start from product manager writing a requirement and designer provide a solution. And we saw a shift that the sequence has changed. So right now, it's better you feel like it's more intuitive. You actually start with design, then you come up with the requirement. Why it makes sense is I think we are all visual animal. It's more like we need to feel the experience. So when you are thinking about, let's say, take community as example, you want to, for example, have a new feature. For example, you can promote something inside your community. Let's see. You roughly know that's why you want this. You feel like many people build community to maybe engage with the people who are interested in our knowledge, and eventually want to, for example, promote maybe a more structured coaching session or, for example, course. So you have the needs to be able to promote something in the best way in the community. So you know where it comes from. And then instead of writing a spec to say, okay, in order to do that, it's these are the top 3 use cases, and then this is how it should work. In this scenario, you should do that. Instead of writing requirement, you can start vibe coding. Because you say, okay, how can I promote it? Maybe on top, it can be a formal post. So in the post, I have a new, maybe it's a toggle to say, okay, this is a promote the product. If I click on promote the product, then I need to select a product. Where is the product? I either create a quick offer or select something from the old one. I say, okay, that's the next step. And then, okay, I will select someone from my library, but maybe I still need to change it. Where can I change it? So you really just think from the customer perspective. I want to do this. How do I do it? Then you can quickly just wipe code this yourself. And then you realize, okay, what about here that there is an edge case if I do not have any product in my library, do I still need to show the screen? Should I get them to somewhere else? So you realize edge cases and the different paths of user experience much easier than you actually write a spec. You also feel where this how it should work. So you really just play around and looking through a customer angle, and then you figure this out already. And then also if you use a web coding tool, especially if you connect to your real production database, which is also one of, I think, life changer really for everyone. Once a product manager and designer have access to the production code base, I think it really give you all the context. So AI knows what your product is about. They also know what has been implemented, what's possible. So when you really web code on top of your production code base, they also roughly know what it is already available, they can already directly retrieve from the real information to make this whole flow make sense. So after you already web coded that, you can also simply prompt AI to say, create a ticket for engineers to explain what I just web coded. Then this ticket is created. So you have if you still want to follow the old Jira process to have always a clean ticket and requirement for engineer, then this is the way. Then you attach the web-coded prototype and you'll have an auto-generate ticket and you give it to engineer. So then it's weird that when do product managers who write tickets come in? We think that this process, it's not I think, so saying product manager as a person, a role is replaced. It's more everyone has to be able to do both, because requirement and then also prototyping, they are merged together. Requirement comes, you explore requirements through prototyping, and then also AI can describe it with you. So basically you have to be able to prototype to explain your requirement, also to challenge yourself with all the edge cases and requirements. That's how you write requirements now. So either designer have to be able to explain, like to think beyond visual and to be able to explain all the logic and figure it out, or product manager have to be able to vibe code that also well to also think about how this should work. But we do not say that when this handover should happen. That's if AI can already write a ticket, if you can vibe code something, and also if vibe coding is a better way for you to have a direct feeling about what exactly is your requirement, then when does the requirement part come in?
And that is the product builder?
That's the two main part about the merging part. And the third aspect is also between, I think, product manager and designer and engineer, especially front-end engineer. So imagine, of course, like after you build something, you always see something that is a little bit off, that maybe this button size is not completely right, or maybe like there are just some edge cases, like there's an error state, or maybe when you do not have anything, you want to improve the illustration when you do not have any product in your library, for example. For all these process that previously we put a ticket and we tell engineers, we write clearly, given these dates, I want to achieve this, then this new thing should happen. Now we just go in and vibe code it ourselves. You can simply it's much faster. Also because generally, I think most designers went through this time, especially before for example, like you can had all the tools that, for example, like they can convert design into CSS code. There was even worse, like just generally designers see small UX issues that engineers do not naturally see. For example, designer immediately spot, okay, these buttons are not the same size, or things are not aligned properly, or this image doesn't have the right resolution. You probably use the wrong format. It takes a few time to point to the engineer exactly what's wrong with this screen. So why not you just go in and fix this rather than go through engineer to really explain to them the context. And then they will say, what's wrong? I do not understand you. So that's just...
I remember that time at
exactly.
Home 24.
Yeah, so that's so we try,
and that's the front end part,
exactly.
Yeah,
so
of the product builder.
I don't know where AI will evolve, but for now we see that the biggest value is really tightening up the last mile of the product, so the final polishing to make the product actually function perfectly, and with maybe a little transition animation, maybe with just small formatting and UI to really figure it out.
What is the main responsibility then of the product builder?
So we think right now there's a bet on the future, right? So what we think right now is every team will have one product builder, and then working with just 2-3 engineers. You will have just like how I described this team. So this is just a small business function.
A pokey question. Do you think front-end engineers are needed in the future? Or pure front-end engineers or pure back-end engineers?
Until my current understanding, how I say that is most roles will be merged. So will be, no matter you call it product builder or product engineer. So we are only talking, because we come from product backgrounds, we talk about how these roles are changing. My understanding is engineers will also, more engineers will get product sense. We also see that in industry and also in many companies, right? So engineers can build, also even in the example I described, if I just show them this is a competitor, this is roughly we want to build, they can already build up 80% of products. Then, we figure out the details, how we build a USP against our competitor. But the backbone is there, so they do not need a product manager to start building. AI can write a spec for them. If they describe the problem, they chat with the AI, they could also define the requirement themselves, right? So I would say for 80% of work we currently do that require a role, then will be merged, just like one person can do all of these. But I also believe there will be specialist role that will be left in each in each role still. There will be someone, for example, from product side, I would say someone who are just strategic. They are still not fully on operational and execution side, who really run experiments and to try to figure out what we want to bet on. Because your building is so easy, but still then what to build is a harder question to answer. So working with the team to build up something is one skill. also trying to figure out what we should bet on. That's a different, slightly different focus. So there will still be people who shouldn't just work with engineers to keep building. There might be people who should really focus on running experiments, figuring out how to move the needles in the business metrics. Where are the opportunities, and actually inspire the rest of the team where the product should go. I think also for engineer, there are still, yeah.
So like the strategic work on the one hand, and on the other hand, what I hear is there should be people who do strategic work, and there should also be people who do the, let's say, the 1% improvements, like figure out where can we make an improvement and run experiments. And
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. So let's get to the very hot part of it. Because I see it also in your presentation. You are so clear about, hey, look, this is not just all fun. Like there are some pitfalls, and I think you call that the hard truth and AI pitfalls. Let's talk about those, and then also about like how did you measure the success? What were the biggest benefits of the whole process? Where did it open up, however, new holes to poke, like reviewing? So in one of the interviews, it was very similar to yours, where she said, well, we are all now writing code and pushing towards the code base, but our developers are the bottleneck now because they have to review everything. And it's like the productivity gain that we got from the coding was destroyed, or is right now destroyed, through the loss in time for reviewing, for example, right? So these things, how did you measure success? What were the main benefits of all of this? Which new gaps did it open up? And what were the AI pitfalls and the hard truth about this whole thing?
There are different challenges at different phase. Some of these are already resolved and some are still like on the way. I would say like, from the beginning, it's probably really acceptance. Like people, it's very difficult for humans to accept that AI can do it better than them. I think it's easier for humans to accept that AI can take some of the boring work from them. But it's very hard to accept that AI can actually do it better than them. So I think that's in a very early time what I noticed. For example, writers cannot really accept that AI can actually write better emails than them. They feel they are creative. They believe their creativity will never be replaced. Well, they can imagine that AI can, for example, help them make some of the boring work. Like, for example, previously they have to create a different version for every, for example, scenario. AI may transform it faster. Something like that, or they can accept that for some not so important emails, AI can write it, but they still want to feel that, no, actually, if I put efforts, I'm better than AI. So I think that's the first part that's difficult for people to accept. It's the same for engineers and also designers. So it's hard for engineers who, I think even if web coding was really should be embraced, was still a discussion like last year. So many engineers were still against web coding. We criticized how bad quality it was, and then really trying to limit the scope to say it's only going to help with a few things, for example. Same with designers. Difficult to be challenged in that way to say AI can maybe create better designs than you.
So how did you turn that around and created that curiosity then that they have started to use it, both developers and designers?
It's difficult. I think it's in some ways, I think it's just a truth you have to embrace. Like no one wants really that. It's uncomfortable for all of us. But the truth doesn't change. Like, no matter if you accept it or not, right? I think for most people, they solely just adapt to that. And I think for us, it's also one of the reasons we started this whole AI Speedboat. It's like we feel like we will not be able to convince everyone at the same time. But then let's find some pioneers who actually showcase this is possible. So we do not keep criticizing that web coding is a hype. It's not going to really help us. We actually find some people who are interested in challenging it and interested in really experiment. Let's work on that. Let's show. So we actually have real evidence. So that's how, like, my understanding, like there are multiple things you have to do. You have to upskill the people. You have to make them feel like they are not left behind, then you are willing to invest in them if they are willing to invest in themselves. But at the same time, also gather the pioneers and then support them so they do not get dragged down, like feeling that it's a mistake that they are actually challenging the way of working. It's actually supported. We want them to do that. We give them environment to try to go faster. So I think it's mixed things, and with time, people slowly, I think, accept the hard truths and also embrace it more, and also with also the technology involvement. I mean, vibe coding is a completely different thing. Like nowadays, like the accuracy compared to 1 year ago is not really the same concept anymore. I think that's maybe in the
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What else?
I think that was very beginning, and then of course, like once you have the team here, like some of the like just use cases we tested was also, I think, interesting. Like, for example, what I briefly mentioned is about this whole asking designers to work on production code. So we probably had the hardest pushback for that. The original code from engineers is like it takes me more time to review your code than I can just do it myself. So basically, you are not saving my time; you're just creating additional burdens for me. So then engineers were really annoyed of this. So other people are messing up with our code. How we did it was more also, I mean, on one hand, you need to get your supporters, prepared engineers. On the other hand, we also try to still like find the people who are a little bit more interested in that. For example, now we have one front engineer that's actually is supporting us in that. So he's actually offering us training on front end. So he explained to us how GitHub process should work, how the naming convention should be aligned with how the current system is actually built. And then also like how to run tests on staging environment, and then also even how to connect it to the whole automatic test environment, and then see if this passes the test or not. And then also with all the PR that comes from design team. So every second week we sit together, we push a few small changes together. He also reviews our PR, give us more educational feedback on that. So he likes it. He feels like, the first session when all the design this is whole CLI is really, it's out of my mind to say how to do the command line and then try to install all the things. He just say, type this and click on enter. And it's like every designer sit there was very confused about what's happening with our life. And then with arrows, they do not really understand. So, and then I was like, are you okay? Yeah, it's really how it looked. And then I was like, are you okay? Is it super ridiculous for you to watch? Then he was like, no, it's actually very funny, like, to see, like, because they never realized people struggle the most. Actually, I think the biggest struggle with vibe coding is actually install all the environment. So it's get access.
I heard this all the time.
Yeah, to get access to the code and then actually to install all these. It's just this whole command line thing that's only engineers work with. And then we mostly follow it and they return something. They say you do not have access to this, or it has error, and we do not even understand what it is. And we just generally do not know what we're doing. I think that's very scary. So doing it together, actually having someone who thinks it's fun to train like the people in that perspective, I think it really eases the whole tension a bit. And also for designers to really to upskill as well. You have to learn. If you want to do this, you need to follow the engineering practice. You need to understand it. And then you also need to follow their standard and pattern. That's the efforts all the designer have to take from their side. So then slowly, I think the PR quality increases, people understand him more. Then in general, I think we meet somewhere in the middle. So we already see this. So every second week we sit together, push a few PRs together. So that's at least it's already in action. Cool. And I think maybe a third challenge I see, which we are still looking for a solution. It's really this AI generated PR, AI generated spec. We all talk about AI can generate spec. It's PRD comes from AI, but honestly, no one likes to read what AI writes. So it's just even if you know this, first it's the writing style, but it's also just if you know that this comes from AI, you already feel I might waste my time review something generated by AI from you. So I think that's generally like it's lengthy, and then it's also very difficult to get the same effect. Like it's not interactive enough. Also, just generally people do not really like to read document, I guess, not to mention it's not generated by human. For that, we try to write spec with AI, and then we first realized no one wants to read it. Second, we realized that it's easily out of date because, for example, we have one project on GitHub to just write about product spec. But while you are running refinement, when you discuss everything with engineers, that there are always something that's changing. And then it's hard to loop AI in to ask AI to always keep up to date. In most cases, because the tickets are still managed on Jira. So you open the Jira ticket, you discuss with engineers, you have some new discussions, you are just updating the tickets on spot. So then how do you keep your GitHub spec like in the loop to keep updating that? I think that's a process we soon realized, okay, the initial spec that lived in GitHub soon got out of date. And then you do not really want to really touch it anymore, then it dies. So for that, right now we only just, so we only use that more or less as initial spec, then we copy paste like some part to the tickets and we basically evolve it only with tickets. Basically the part that's missing is more exactly like first you cannot really refine it with AI and then keep also the document in one place, not a single source of truth. But also if the spec doesn't live in the code, then for example, there's another use case that when we release something, all this context could be used as your release story to really explain why we build this feature and how we build it, what we want to achieve. But then if it stays in Jira or another project, it cannot be combined. So that's the next experiment actually we want to run. So we want to try to have the spec written in the same code base actually tied to each of the really improvement. So our vision is like when we release something, if it's customer facing, then they directly already take the context from the initial spec and take it and together with the release and to explain that what we just released and why and the whole business context and then push it directly to the customer facing team, for example. That would be the next experiment to have.
That's nice. And that's probably also very helpful for customer support teams to, like when questions come up as in like, is this feature, like how can I do X, Y, Z or so?
Yes.
Then they can look this up and see what it's been built for and if it does it or not.
Yes,
right? So
definitely.
That's cool. Is there anything that you would say we've gained a lot of benefits from X, but now we have the bottleneck here? Like for example, definitely time to market is a lot shorter. Time to learning is a lot shorter. What I see, speed of like naturally a smaller team is faster. So we can be as fast now with a smaller team. And you mentioned AI made it possible to change your mind more often. So we are more agile than before, like ever, as far as I can say. Is there any productivity gain or business impact, anything in that direction that you have measured, for example?
Of course, we measure, for example, for the, so from like productivity, we measure, for example, how many PRs are basically deployed each week. So we know we probably have 5 to 6 times of increase compared to the traditional release really process. But of course, it's not A/B testing. It's not like you have 2 engineer teams that compete on each other building the same thing. So there are also other dynamics. So we could only roughly from like a number of PRs and also from the people who directly work on both projects from also like their own perspective. So we mostly think that it's around 5 to 6 times of the increase of productivity. And then also with the new project, of course, it's also we measure the business impact, what kind of, for example, we are a SaaS company. We measure also the whole SaaS uplift. We also measure customer satisfaction. We also know, for example, just like a simple example, we measure directly inside the product, but also one example to just also compare, for example, on Instagram, we recently posted about one event that we are hosting and we are sponsoring mostly. And then we ask people, what's your favorite feature in Ablefy and to really win the ticket for the event? Then For example, the community product we built had the highest vote. So although it was built by a super, super small team at a very short time. So we also, so from different angles, we can see the product quality is much higher. We got many customer calls that we feel like a lot of development are happening. I feel like my feedback are always heard. If we see visible really impacts like every week. So we always manage to push a few like customer facing releases and then to customers and also show it on our own like internal community to customers. So everyone, I think, also recognize the quality and all this speed from different angles. I think that's the direct again.
Poking question.
Yeah.
Yeah. A poking question. Is it possible that you gain so much speed because of the new tech stack instead of AI, or do you think it's both, or do you think?
I think it's both. It's not purely AI. I think like greenfield, new tech stack plus AI, they all work together. I mean, AI just like I think there were also some statistics which supported our approach. That's mostly saying like, for example, the AI value for greenfield products in general is much higher. So there's some experiments more scientifically that has tested. Because for legacy product, it's harder to really use vibe code. The quality issue is higher. Also, with different tech stack, so AI also, I mean, first AI has different size of the database to really contribute to that, but also the understanding about your current database. Imagine if your codes are always written by AI with only human in the loop from very beginning. Of course, AI understand the codes perfectly. But if your codes were all written by human, AI might not understand some logics, not to mention, for example, have our front end, back end in two different projects. So it's not all the logic are in one place, for example.
And did it create any new bottlenecks? I mean, design and specification you mentioned.
Yes. Obviously, like in that level, like many, like specification, but also even for example, challenge to the designer process. Like, how do we share even like a web coded prototype with stakeholders, for example? Previously, it's mostly a Figma link you share. Everyone can just access it. And now you share a GitHub branch. So then how do you do that? So we sometimes deploy it to staging to show it. But that's a much more lengthy process. And also how do designers work together? So you deploy it to one branch, the other designer has to take it. And it's just like previously, it's like a mirror, like a Figma, you just go to the board, you work together, right? But now it's really like a whole engineering kind of workflow, which is not really, I think, the best thing that happened to designers' life. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you very much. I will close with the final question that I ask everyone.
Yes.
And I have lost sight of the time. I'm very sorry for that. There's so much interesting information. I just looked at the time. I was like, oh my God. I will finish with the last question that I ask everyone. And I have a very nice phrasing for that. So I will read it from my paper.
Sure.
If you were advising a peer starting today, what are the biggest learnings that you shared with them? Positive, negative, what they should be careful or what any biggest learnings?
I would say really get started is the first thing. Many things look terrifying and then you just need to start and it gets less terrifying. For example, GitHub, I didn't want to touch it, but it's fine. You will be able to understand the logic eventually. And then it's also, you can navigate around even if you do not completely understand it. Then find the people that can really support you in this process. So for example, in my example, like the company that supported me to start this experiment, also my initial, for example, consultant and the first engineer that worked with me closely who are genuinely interested in challenging the status quo and then build this experiment with me. And also my product and design peers that's really are curious and actually go learn it together with me. Then also this, for example, the front engineer who is genuinely willing to coach us, like in how to really upskill in this sense. So there are some people who can help you along the way. So not everyone will be equally interested in what you are doing, and you do not have to really convince everyone. So the most important thing is to find your supporting network and actually work with these people, and then to really bring the changes, and you get more and more empowered with time, and you can make bigger changes with time.
Cool. Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. I would like to ask, is there anything that I didn't ask and you want to add? Other than that, for everyone who is watching this episode, we will share the slides, right? So there's a slide deck from a presentation by Guanan, which was the reason that I reached out to you, like the presentation, not the slides. I didn't see the slides before, but the presentation, or I heard about the presentation. And she's willing to share those slides. So wherever we connect or we link to this video,
Yes.
we will also share the slides.
Yes.
Probably on my blog.
Yes.
Let's see. I'll figure it out.
Sounds very good and
wonderful. Thank you very, very much for joining, and also for staying longer than planned. I'm sorry. It was just so super interesting.
Thank you very much for the time. Also, I know I also have a next meeting I have to run, I would run to, but it's also wonderful to really reflect on all the things and actually hopefully to be able to help more people in the same situation. So thank you very much for creating the opportunity.